All right, so welcome to what will probably be the most difficult and longest tutorial in our RPG series, but we're going to get something really cool out of this. In this tutorial, we're going to make a full menu system for our inventory. So in the last tutorial, we created this basic inventory where we're just storing these items inside of our inventory, and then we can cycle between them. Now we're going to actually build it out into a full menu system where you can open the menu up, it pauses your game, and then you can sort through all the different items and choose what to equip. So let's go ahead and start within this inventory brain right here. That's where most of the stuff is going to be happening. The first thing we want to do is create a new page. So on the second page, we're going to call this page the inventory menu page. So let's rename this to @inventory menu. All right, so we have our inventory menu page. First thing we're going to do is we are going to choose page entered, which you've probably seen before, and we are also going to choose a new tile within world properties here on the second page, a property called world pace, and we're going to set this equal to 0. This thing right here, what this does is this sets the pace of every single moving object in the world down to 0. So its default pace of everything is 1. Think of it as basically this freeze frames everything in the world. Goblins stop moving, humans stop moving, kind of everything stops moving. But brains don't stop running. That's the kind of the important part. Brains don't stop running inside of objects, so things can still happen, but nothing is moving. So, the goblins that are mid-attack on you, they're going to freeze when we do this. And that's good because when we're in this inventory menu, we want everything to be frozen. So let's also just display something on here so we know that we have our inventory open. So we are going to, on the do side, choose to display. We're going to go to Objects, Gallery Picker, and we have this whole icons gallery. So let's go over a few, and I'm going to choose this blue tile icon. The nice thing with displaying icons is we can actually change their height, their width, their scale, play around with those. You can even put things in negative numbers and flip them around. That's a little nifty thing you can do. But we're going to set the height here at 10. That's kind of tall enough so that this thing will take up the full height of your screen. And we're also going to set a width of 6 on this blue tile. So height of 10, width of 6. We can also change the opacity of icons, which is great. We want this to be slightly opaque so we can see the screen behind us. So let's set an opacity of 0.75. So 1 is kind of full non-see-through, 0 is completely see-through and visible, so 0.75 makes this thing a tiny bit see-through. And then we are going to go ahead and set the position for this at a screen position. I don't think we've used at screen position before. And for now, we're going to put it at screen position, go over to Values, Vector, and you're going to see this 0 right here. And 0 basically is setting it at the 0 point of the screen, which is the dead center of your screen. So screen position 0 is the dead center of your screen. And we're also going to choose going to positioning, HUD stacking, no HUD stack. HUD stack we'll explain in a bit. So we have that. Let's go ahead and call this. So these two right here, let's ignore a lot of the stuff happening on this first page. We are going to basically take all of this stuff and ignore all of it. We also don't need to have worry about when inventory selections equals 0 anymore, because we're going to be taking care of that soon. And I ignored all this so that I could put down when right bumper is pressed, we're going to toggle something. So if you go over to Math, you're going to see Toggle, and go to Values, Boolean. This is going to be, oh no, we've used Booleans before, so you should know something about Booleans. And we're going to go ahead and choose a Boolean here. I created this Boolean called Inventory Menu, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. Just make sure to type out something in line with inventory menu. This is basically going to toggle on and off our menu. And this toggling basically sets it from true to false. So every time I hit right bumper, if it's true, it toggles it to false. If it's false, it toggles it back to true. Now when inventory menu is true, then I'm going to go ahead and call a page here. So let's go to brains, call page, and let's go to values, text, and let's find our page. Let's see, inventory menu. There we go. That's the name of our page, or it looks like actually our page is in lower cases. That's kind of important. Make sure you know the casing. So inventory menu, lowercase. So we're calling inventory menu, and then also here we're setting world pace equal to 0. We want it set back to 1 at a certain point. So let's also say that when no longer inventory menu, or when this inventory menu has become false and it is no longer running, then let's copy this line here that says world pace equals 0. Let's bring it here and make this a child line under no longer inventory menu. We're going to set world pace equal to 1. So back to 1. And let's go ahead and run this. So we have goblins. Now I haven't really set up anything new to happen within our inventory, but let's take a look at what world pace does. So I hit right bumper, and look at that. The goblin stopped, I stopped. So we have this little blue screen that I created that is stretching across our screen. That looks actually that looks just like kind of what I wanted, so that's perfect. And if I hit right bumper again, then everything goes back to normal, and this goblin can follow me. All right, so we have the beginnings of a menu here. Now we actually need to fill out this menu with our full inventory. So let's start displaying stuff. So let's go into inventory. Let's go over to our inventory menu page, and let's display a few things on the screen. First, just like before, we're going to need to do a for each of loop on our global object set called onPlayer. So this loops through everything that kind of our player has in their inventory, whether it's equipped or not equipped. And then we are going to, underneath of here, we're going to choose to display it, and go to appearance, name, and we're also going to display it. So display it name gives the name of the object. Display it will display the picture of the object. We also want to do something new that we haven't really done before. We want to actually set the exact screen position through setting X and Y coordinates of where these appear on the screen. So this will be our first time kind of working with vectors. And on-screen vectors are pretty simple to understand. We have Y, which goes up to down, like you see my mouse moving, and X, which goes left to right. The very far left side of the screen is -1x. The very far right side of the screen is 1x. The very top of the screen is 1y. The very bottom of the screen is -1y. So we can use that to set some vector variables to be equal to a exact point on a screen we want something to appear in. So let's start setting some vector variables, and we're going to set them under page entered here. So let's go to values, and you're going to see this vector area, and this is where we set our vector variables. So I've already pre-named the 3 vector variables we'll be using. I called one inv image, inv text, and selection. And this is just kind of shorthand for inventory. So the inventory image, the inventory text, and a selection arrow that we're going to be having in here. So first off, the inventory image, we want to go ahead and set its X component, and its X component is going to be equal to, go to number, new number, -0.3, and you're going to have to trust me on that because it's going to line up to a point on the screen that makes sense. Then inventory image Y, we're going to set that equal to 0, so the dead center of the screen vertically. Next, we're going to take in inventory text. The X of that is going to be equal to -0.25. And then inventory, the inventory text Y is also going to be equal to 0. And you're going to see how kind of all of this shakes out. And the last thing we're going to set is the selection arrow that we're going to be using that kind of indicates what item we're currently on. So for that, we're going to choose another vector variable called selection. I just set this up here. And selection x is going to be equal to negative 0.33. And then selection y, well, it's actually going to line up with these guys. So they're all going to line up on, in terms of vertically. So they're all going to be y is equal to 0 for all three of this. So they're all lined up. Now we can go ahead and reference these. So let's go down here to display it name. Now we can say position at screen position, and let's go ahead and grab inventory text. So now this is going to be displayed at screen position inventory text. Now this is going to be the image here, so that will be displayed at screen position inventory image. And we also need to have a selection arrow. Now the selection arrow doesn't need to be under this for each of global on player, because this loops through everything that is in our inventory basically and pulls all of their names and all of their pictures. But for just a selection arrow, we don't need that under there. So we can have this as its own line here, and we're going to say display, go to gallery picker, and let's go over until we find an arrow. Arrow swirl right is the one I'm going to choose. We're going to set the scale of this to 0.3, so basically 1/3 of its normal size. And this is something I measured out beforehand to make sure that it kind of fits well with our inventory text and our inventory image. And this is going to be at screen position selection. Let's also make its name font size extra large font. And the image we are going to bring down in size. So every image will be scaled down to 0.2, or basically 20% of its original scale. We're going to leave it at that, and let's go ahead and go in and test. And let's see what that looks like now. Alright, so let's punch some goblins. Now let's pick up some inventory here. So we actually had a pretty good drop there. So let's hit right bumper. And, well, this doesn't look great. Looks like everything's being displayed in the exact same point here. So this is where something like HUD stacking comes in. HUD stacking is something that you may not have used before, but really helps sort out all of this information. So let's show you what HUD stacking looks like. We need to apply HUD stacking to these lists right here. So what we want to do is let's add some lines in here. So we're going to do modifier, going to position, go to HUD stacking, and we're going to choose HUD stack down on this, copy this here, and put HUD stack down here as well. So, all right, just taking HUD stack down, let's take a look at what those look like now. Alright, so let's pick up a few items. It's got a sword, we got a shield, we got a coin. And it's not perfect yet, but we at least have everything actually lined out now. So we can actually see knife, stone sword, coin, fighter, shield. So to make these perfect, we need to add one more thing here to name. And that is, go to position, HUD justification, and let's do HUD justify left for this. And you know what, this arrow, let's actually change the color of it. So we can also change the color of any of our on-screen elements. So let's change the color of that arrow to red. Jump into test. Let's punch some more goblins. Looks like they're punching me a few times too, but not to worry. So let's just go ahead and pick up some things. Oh, this coin is really flying away from us. So let's pick up the coin, let's pick up these guys, and look at that. Oh, that's perfect, right? We have the 4 images, we have the 4 pieces of text, and we have the arrow. What we don't have, though, is we don't have any way to actually scroll through this stuff yet. So let's go ahead and build them some scrolling. Now here is where things will get a bit complicated, but stick with me and definitely play around with this quite a bit after we've done this. So first thing we want to do is we want to implement a new type of number variable, and that is going to be a number variable called y_offset. So let's go to values, number. Let's choose, looks like I already created y_offset, so we're just going to pick that. We're going to initially set y_offset is equal to 0. So the inventory image y, we're going to now make it equal to y_offset. And inventory text y, we're going to make that equal to y_offset. And we want to take these out from under page entered because this is only going to have these run once. We want them to be running constantly. So let's take these out of here. And now we're also going to take another number that we used previously, inventory selection. And we're going to set inventory selection. Let's create a new line here. Inventory selection is going to be equal to the global object set called onPlayer count. So what that means is inventory selection is going to start out at basically the last number in the list of all of the numbers of objects in our inventory. And this is because things are added in our inventory where the first item is number 1, second item is number 2, third item is number 3, number 4, 5, so on and so forth. But the way they're stacked is the most recent item is first, the second most recent item is second, so we actually need to kind of flip it where we're starting on the most recent item or the highest number in this list. So we have these things working for us. Now let's go ahead and add in an ability to scroll between these different items. So we're going to say when started to, go to controls, controller, left stick. We're going to start with left stick pushed in up direction. So every time you hit up with left stick, then you're going to move up. We're going to have a child line under here. And we're going to say that inventory selection. And let's go ahead and grab that from the top up here. So inventory selection, we're going to say that that is going to increase or increment by 1. And then y_offset is going to decrease or decrement by 0.1. And y_offset is an on-screen element. So you think the top of the screen, it goes 0 is the center of the screen all the way up to 1, and 0 all the way to -1. So that's about 1/20th of the screen right there. And let's also just, for consistency, let's go ahead and bring up inventory image to the top up here. So we have inventory text and inventory images y equal to y_offset, both right next to each other. All right, so started to left stick up direction, both these two things happen. Then started to left stick direction down. So I went ahead and copied this up here. Then the opposite is going to happen. Inventory selection is going to go down, and the y_offset is going to go up. And the y_offset is being applied to the name and the image. So this means that basically the items are going to actually go up and down, while that selection arrow is going to always stay in the very center of the screen. So we can go ahead and test it now. Let's jump in, let's punch some more goblins, get some more loot from these guys. Alright, so let's pick up these items. Alright, so 3 items, that should do it. Let's get in here. And now what you see is I am able to scroll between these 3 items with my left stick. So I'm now able to go between items, but I don't have a clamp on here, so that means that I can keep on going up to where no item is and keep on going down where to no item is. So we want to change that. And we want to clamp that. Instead of having a clamp like we did at the top page here, where inventory selection equals clamp minimum of 0, maximum of whatever the count is, let's clamp it in a simpler way, where when started to left stick is in up direction. Well, let's say this can only be done, we can only increase our inventory selection and decrease our Y offset if the inventory selection is less than the total count of everything in that global object set. So global object set on player count. And then if our inventory selection, or sorry, did we say greater than? No, less than. Perfect. That's what we wanted. So if our inventory selection is greater than 1, then we can go ahead and bring our inventory selection down. So this clamps that for us. So that's great. We now have a clamp. And we also, last thing we want to do is when I press A and I'm on an item, I want to go ahead and equip that item. So we can go ahead and steal some of that code from what we did previously in our first page. So we had here this right here where we said, when current index is equal to inventory select, unequip to inventory, inventory equals it, and equip that item that is called inventory now. So we can select this, copy it, bring it all the way over here. Let's put it above all of our display text. And let's nest all of this under when A is pressed. So when A is pressed, it looks at everything in the this object set called on player. Then whatever the item index that is equal to our currently inventory selection is going to unequip whatever you currently have equipped. It's going to set inventory equal to that thing, and it's going to go ahead and equip that thing. Let's jump into test. Let's check this out, see how it works. Alright, so let's pick up some of these items here. Looks like we only got a loot drop of 3 items, but that's okay. That's enough for us to test around with. So we can go between these items. You'll see that I am clamped here. And now let's hit A. And look at that. I'm equipping that axe. I'm equipping that shield when I hit A. And I'm equipping that sword when I hit A. And I can hit right trigger, and the sword is still equipped. Hit it again, and let's instead this time equip the axe. Get out of here. Now I have that axe equipped. So the last thing we want to do is we want to clean up our previous code, because we have some previous code on our first page running that is no longer needed. So the first thing that's no longer needed is this clamp actually is not needed, because we're clamping things in a new way now, where we're looking for if inventory selection is greater than 1 and if it's less than the total count. So we can go ahead and get rid of this clamp. Also, everything under ignore line, it's not running right now, and everything's running fine, so we can go ahead and delete everything under ignore line here. And we're also displaying our inventory item at the screen bottom center, so we can get rid of that. We have one last kind of debug line right here where it's displaying our current inventory selection number in red. Well, that's actually still might be pretty useful, so let's just ignore this for now. We're just going to ignore it because it's a debug line that we might want to look at later on. So we've now condensed the first page all the way down to 4 lines, and all the big stuff is happening on this second page, which is gone all the way up from 0 to looks like about 30 lines. Alright, so hope you're glad, hope you're happy with yourself, because you've gotten through here and you've gotten a working inventory menu out of this. You can now go through and make a inventory for you to select between and find all these items and kind of choose what you want to equip.